this week on the show we have Ian Fanselow, the author of the action-packed book, Worlds Apart. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for watching. This show is all about giving you insights and showcasing brands that help you to live your best life and give you confidence. As always, I want to kickstart your morning with some motivational advice to help you to feel inspired and energized to start your day. Today, I want to talk about the importance of understanding that the key to being magnetic is being yourself. Authenticity is magnetic. Having a magnetic personality or aura happens naturally when we show up in the world authentically, not trying to be anyone but ourselves. In fact, there is no one on the planet exactly like you. Your magnetism stems from being original. When we are authentic, we bring something to the world that has never been seen before, simply for the fact that there is only one you. We all know someone who has a magnetic aura, whether it's someone who we know personally or someone we see on TV. Their confidence and authenticity makes them magnetic and is the key factor as to why they are successful. Make your mission today to stop caring what other people think and start embracing all the unique things that make you you. As Brian Ford quotes, "No one is you, and that is your superpower." Stay tuned. Coming up after the break. And let's talk about the premise of the book, Worlds Apart. Talk to us about the character Laura.
Yeah, so Laura is a teenage girl, and she's just discovered she has feelings for her best friend Evelyn, and wants to, ask her to the big dance that's coming up in their middle school before Evelyn is going to move away, because she's her parents got divorced, and Evelyn's going to move away soon. So she wants to kind of have this big reveal of her feelings to her best friend. But before any of that can happen, they're kidnapped by aliens and separated, and it's like this kind of adventure story of Laura trying to find Evelyn through all of these different planets and these weird and wacky aliens that kind of get in the way. And Laura really showcases a lot of courage by overcoming these things, and a lot of intelligence by being able to solve a lot of unique problems.
Wardrobe provided by Le Chateau. Next up on the show, we have Ian Fanselow, the author of the action-packed adventure book, Worlds Apart. Ian, thank you so much for being on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing amazing. I have your book right here. So I want to talk to you about, before we get into your book, Worlds Apart, let's talk to you about your passion for writing. When did that begin?
Yeah, so I think I've always really been into telling stories. Like, when I was in elementary school, I was coming up with games. When I was in middle school, I kind of came up with this whole comic book universe that I wanted to create. In high school, I was really writing down all of these ideas and kind of creating this, larger world as I was coming up with more and more stories to tell. In college, I had written some ideas for TV shows and things. So really, I would say it's not just a passion for writing, but just a passion for storytelling in general. And sometimes that is a book, sometimes it's something else. But this is kind of the first thing that I was able to bring to fruition completely.
I love that. And this is your first book. What made you take the leap and get published?
Yeah, so kind of with what I was just saying, I had all these ideas of things, but I never finished them. They were stories that I wanted to tell, and I even wrote out, but couldn't actually get into a position where I could completely finish it, right? If it was a TV show, I wasn't able to get the team required. If it was a video game, I couldn't get all of the art and all of those things. And when I had the idea for this book, I realized this is something that I could actually bring all the way from start to finish. And then last year, at the start of the year, I said, I don't want to have any more excuses to not be actually publishing my creative works that I've always been wanting to do. So I kind of set a goal for myself to, by the end of the year, publish it. And I was able to do that near the beginning of November.
Congratulations, by the way. A lot of people have all these great ideas, but they don't actually take the step right to get published. But it's amazing that you did so. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And let's talk about the premise of the book, Worlds Apart. Talk to us about the character Laura.
Yeah, so Laura is a teenage girl, and she's just discovered she has feelings for her best friend Evelyn, and wants to, ask her to the big dance that's coming up in their middle school before Evelyn is going to move away because she's her parents got divorced, and Evelyn's going to move away soon. So she wants to like kind of have this big reveal of her feelings to her best friend. But before any of that can happen, they're kidnapped by aliens and separated, and it's like this kind of adventure story of Laura trying to find Evelyn through all of these different planets and these weird and wacky aliens that kind of get in the way. And Laura really showcases a lot of courage by overcoming these things, and a lot of intelligence by being able to solve a lot of unique problems. And that's kind of really the basis of her character and the story. And she's also very into like classic sci-fi stuff, so she's always comparing the situation she's in to Star Trek or Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, things like that. But it's never quite the way that she expects. So it's also kind of realizing, kind of taking someone who just loves sci-fi and all of the different stories that sci-fi has told, and like is familiar with all of them, and then put them in a totally different but still sci-fi themed situation, kind of seeing how they can use what they know to overcome things, but also where those assumptions can lead to mistakes being made.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, this book has elements of sci-fi, aliens, new galaxies. What kind of journey can readers expect to go on by reading this book? Yeah,
it's kind of the main idea is like it's this story about finding your way home and finding your best friend in this strange galaxy. So that's a very familiar story with something like the Odyssey about a journey home, and that's a very common trope in media. But what I tried to do was kind of really take that baseline, very familiar storyline, and then add in, more unique elements about the aliens and the world and the character, really. So, and what I think that what really is exemplified in the journey is this mixture between the action moving everything forward, while Laura's character also growing in parallel with that. So it's kind of a very personal story for Laura, but she's inside this world that has these much grander elements going on.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious, how did you come up with the character Laura? What kind of drew you to this character?
So kind of what happened one night, I was actually like going to bed one night, and I was trying to sleep, and usually when I'm trying to sleep I think of like stories and things, and I had the idea for this character who loves science fiction and is put into another world and has to like kind of explore that. So like that was the core idea. And then I had a lot of other ideas like throughout my life, going back, and whenever I have an idea for something that might make for a good story or a good part of the story, I kind of just like record that in my head, and I have it just kind of sitting there for when it finds use. And that character fits so well, of just a person who likes science fiction going to another world, with this other idea I had of going from place to place to try to find a person and then getting invested in whatever problems are going on in those places. So like, at one point that idea was like, it could be like a series of islands, and you're on a boat and you're going to each island and each trying to find somebody, and each island has its own like storyline, or it could be something else. And eventually, when I had the idea for the character Laura, that fits so well. It's like, oh, what if they're all different planets for that other idea? And then that kind of fit in with my ideas for what the kind of villains were trying to do, their kind of goal in this. And every single piece kind of fit in together with other ideas I had. But Laura's personality was like the key that kind of stuck everything together, or the glue, I guess, is a better metaphor, that stuck everything together.
Very nice. And Laura is courageous and she's clever. How does she use these traits to navigate this new world she finds herself in?
Yeah, so the courage is very important because I don't make the finding Evelyn easy. There's no like, oh, what a coincidence, this is all working out for us. There's every chance there's something to go wrong. It often does go wrong, and Laura just has to not give up, and she goes past the points where most people would give up, and it's really and one side is a story just about not giving up no matter what. And then in terms of her kind of cleverness and intelligence, one thing I really tried to do to really show her intelligence is have her be wrong more often. A lot of times when someone writes an intelligent character, they just like know everything instantly, or they figure out a thing and it works perfectly. And with Laura, you see her come up with ideas based on the information she has, and you see how she does that. And then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes she makes false assumptions based on information she has. And you kind of really see her fail, but then also with the courage that I mentioned, comes back and tries again with a new idea, and you can really see how smart she is because of how she acts when she makes a mistake, not just when she gets the answer right the first time.
Mm-hmm. I love that you made her into a very spunky character. I think that's exciting. So who is your favorite character in your book and why?
Yeah, so I've obviously spent the most time with Laura, and she's so important to everything, where everything is built around her. But also sometimes it's kind of like the boring answer to say the main character. So for this kind of question, so I also really like Feis, who's one of the villains of this book. She's this sentient cloud who builds gadgets, who's also like a crime boss type thing. And that's very like kind of weird and unique. And what I like about her is the fact that like a lot of stories will have aliens be basically just like humans with like different ears or something, or like green skin or something like that. But I try to have some aliens that are human-like and some aliens that are very much not. And Feis, being a floating cloud who can talk, is very much not a human. And I had a lot of fun with like having her talk in a way that makes sense, but still like just like feels kind of off, where she like is slightly more formal, but uses like formal like words and phrases in context that wouldn't really exactly fit. So she's not like specifically overly formal, just kind of has a slightly off feeling that you can't quite place. And that was really fun. Whereas with Laura, it's a lot more stressful to be writing like for Laura, because like I really have to get that perfect, because the story is so much leaning on Laura's characterization.
Mm-hmm. And if Worlds Apart could be turned into a blockbuster movie, who would play the role of Laura and why?
So I've thought about this a lot, and when it comes to like books versus movies versus TV shows, if which is another option, there are some things that like work better as a book versus a movie, and one of those things is that you have to fill in the blanks with your imagination. Mm-hmm. And when I was writing for Laura, what I really tried to utilize this, and I describe her physical traits not very much at all, right? I like talk about what clothes she was wearing. She has like, in the cover right here, you can see she has like this reddish hair, but in the first few pages it says that she dyed her hair red, so you don't even know her natural hair color. And I really did that so that anybody reading it will fill in the blanks with how she looks, with whatever they imagine. So I don't say how tall she is, for example, or what her skin tone is, anything like that, so that anybody who's reading it could really put themselves in those shoes. And I feel like if I were to make it into a movie, I would have to make decisions about like what she looks like in a way that I would rather readers be able to put themselves in the shoes of the hero here. And I really try to do that with the character, because I try to make her as relatable as possible. Even though she has like a lot of unique traits about like she like is obsessed with Star Trek and has memorized the entirety of Star Trek, which is not something that most people have done. But in terms of her appearance and her goals are very relatable to the everyday person. So I kind of want it to be anybody could put themselves in those shoes, and you can't really do that with a movie.
That's the wonderful thing about books, right? You use your imagination to create characters, to see how they look. You kind of come up with how they look in your mind, right? Yeah. So that's the wonderful thing about books. On her journey, of course, she has villains and a lot of barriers that she goes through. So talk to us some about the barriers that she goes through on this journey, and some of the villains as well.
Yeah. So there's quite a few villains that are introduced. So there's the Arbalest, which is this group of essentially guards who have clamshell heads and these big laser gauntlet glove things that are like chasing her down. The other, and there's like so those are kind of one group of villains. There's Feis, who's this kind of crime lord person I mentioned, who's a cloud that she gets involved with kind of coincidentally. There's Dwin, who's someone who helps her, but Dwin is kind of fits the role of the guide character you usually see in these stories, where like, you know, in Star Wars, right, in Star Wars Episode 4, when Luke meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, who like is like the person who teaches him about everything. Laura meets Dwin, but Dwin is actually not very knowledgeable about anything and just kind of is like, let's just do the thing we have to do and don't ask me any questions. So there's kind of an informational obstacle of she doesn't really know what's going on and has to figure it out, as well as the physical obstacles of these two kind of groups of antagonists that are kind of pushing her on either side. And both of those kind of play into her own kind of anxieties about like she overthinks things a lot, and having no information at all makes the problem of overthinking really much worse. And that's kind of like really her core flaw in this first book, where she is overthinking everything and has to like figure out what information she can trust and what information is useful and what things she just has to accept that she doesn't know quite yet.
Very exciting. And Ian, you know, I created my platform to inspire, to uplift, to really showcase that anything is possible if you have a dream and a vision. So for any readers or people that, you know, have a creative vision out there but are afraid to take that leap of faith like you did, what would you say to inspire them to kind of, you know, get their content out there and really to show the world what they have?
Yeah, so you can really publish your book through a lot of different places for free, like on Amazon, on Ingram Spark, which is where all of the local bookstores get their stock. So you can, you know, kind of go online and do those things if you're interested in publishing books. If you're interested in, you know, publishing other things, then there are lots of ways to do that. And, you know, you can just try to like meet people and make connections. And it's just worth like the effort, because, you know, you're only going to be able to publish your first book once, and that might be a big step. But if you want to, you know, write lots of books, you have to start with one and then kind of move from there. It's really, so there's really no reason to not do this one. And then after that, you can work on the next one.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about publishing more books, are there more books in your future?
Yes, for sure. I you know, this is the first of a series, and, you know, it ends with, you know, clearly another book being required to conclude the story, maybe even more than that. So I've written many drafts of other books, some in this series, some not, and I definitely intend to kind of keep moving forward with that, and, you know, not letting anything like that kind of stop me again, now that I've proven that I can release a book and get it out there and get it into people's hands.
Very nice. And Ian, for our viewers that want to learn more about your journey and keep up with your projects, where can they do so?
Yeah, so the book is available on Amazon. If you just search my name or Worlds Apart, you should be able to find that. And then I also have a website, which is just ianfanselow.com. So that's just my name.com. And there you can sign up for a mailing list where I can update you with progress on things. And it also has links to, you know, all of my social media that's posting about that kind of stuff as well. So, you know, both of those places are the great places to find me.
Very nice. We're going to link that information for our viewers to see. And
Great.
Ian, thank you so much for being on the show today. Congratulations on such a great first book. And we're excited to see what else is in store for you.
Thank you so much. All right. See ya.
The Darriel Roy Show is available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts.